And welcome back to Down the Slope. We got the same cast on this week as we did last week. I'm joined by Liam and Craig. Craig, come at you first, mate. Is it already weird to not have Hibs football to look forward to on the weekend?
It's hit me like a brick, to be fair. Bizarrely, Hibs not playing at the weekend, and I was probably more angry than I've been at any point this season. So yeah,
Yeah, Liam, obviously, as we've had positive vibes for half a season, we're just going to try and keep them flowing. So, in good news, we're getting Hibs football competitively a bit earlier than planned.
I mean, that is I suppose there's a few positives. That's definitely one of them. Is that the return of competitive football certainly will be sooner than we first thought. But say la vie, say la vie. It is what it is. We weren't counting our chickens at all. We always said that it was with the hope that Celtic did the business on Saturday, and sadly they did not.
Can I just say some very stupid people definitely counted their chickens, and those stupid people are specky and sad. But let's just rip the band-aid off and kind of look at what that actually means for the club. I'm stealing this off Scott Miller, who put this on Twitter. So, Scott, if you're watching, thank you for this. Can you guys see it okay?
yes,
So essentially, the result of the weekend means that we move back a couple of rounds. So we would initially have went in where it says Europa League playoff, but now we enter where it says Europa League qualifying round. So in short, you win one game. If we win two games, we're guaranteed group stage football. If we lose a game, then we need to win at least two games to actually get to the group stage. So Liam, we were kind of going back and forth in the chat about it. There has been some teams in Scotland that have done it. It's not a recurring thing. So I think the reason that fans were quite disheartened is just because it's something that's not too frequent. But why not believe? We had an incredible season this year that we'll talk about in a bit. So it is
Like,
possible.
and to clarify, some teams outside of those, obviously
Yeah.
Glasgow Rangers and Celtic have done it. Give them their full Sunday name. Have done it obviously on a number of occasions, but I think Aberdeen under Jimmy Calderwood was the only example we could think of where a club had done that. So it obviously doesn't happen very often, and it's like with any cup competition, it's obviously hugely dependent on the draw you get. If you get Aston Villa at the third qualifying round stage, you're you're fucked. Let's be honest. If you do get one of the big boys out the hat in qualifying round stage 2 or 3, and you're, um, on the verge of going out, as in you're in the sort of Conference League side of things, then unfortunately that probably just means that your European adventures over. But hopefully we'll still get a couple of good away days out of it. I think that's the main thing. And the 18th of June is the draw. The games aren't until the 24th of and 31st of July, so that's plenty of planning time. Still enough turnaround time, and wherever you go, it'll still be the height of summer. So, looking for positives. There you go.
That's it, mate. And then I've just got the hang. We shared something on the screen last week, guys. So I'm just going to share things on screen from now on. But Craig's first set of fixtures at the moment. If you're looking at this on the screen, this has been very visual for our audio listeners. So definitely check us out on YouTube as well. But the teams with a tick next to them means it's actually being confirmed. There's no cup competitions or league standings to be finalised. So Craig, everybody on the left hand side, Craig, out of there, essentially we're just kind of looking towards the bottom, aren't we? And just hoping that we can get Lugano or Sheriff.
I'll be honest. There's not really any of those teams that I'm familiar with week in week out on how they're getting on. I would base it purely off of names and the coefficient score, obviously. And I'd definitely be looking towards the bottom of that list. Sheriff, I know we were talking about at the weekend. They played in the Champions League a couple of years ago.
They
So
beat
they've got a
Real at the
decent
Bernabeu. They beat
Yeah.
Real 2-1 at the Bernabeu three or
But
four
Easter
seasons ago.
Road's a hard place to come this season, in fairness. So uh, I don't know if it's quite the same as the Bernabeu. Lugano, I hadn't even really heard much about them, to be honest. So I'd just definitely be wanting somebody at the bottom of the list, somebody that's got a realistic chance. And if not, give me a good away day.
That's it. And if either of you guys, I shouldn't be throwing this out there without knowing for certain, but I'm pretty sure if we were to beat a team on the left hand side, I think going into the following round, we would then take their coefficient standing. Is that not a thing? Bex mentioned that. Oh well.
I'm not sure, mate. I think that is. I think that was a thing in the past, but I
Not
was of
anymore.
the understanding that was no longer. I think that definitely was a thing in the past, but I don't think you take their seeding forward. No, I might be wrong.
Harry Anderson tweeted something on some article on Twitter that apparently there is some way that we can still be seeded.
All right.
To be honest, anytime I read anything about coefficients and all that stuff, my mind just boggles and I do not understand it. So I wouldn't even bother trying to explain it.
That's why the Scotland's coefficient boys put all this stuff behind the paywall, because it is very fucking complicated to understand. It turns out it's maybe money well spent. At least a 7-day free trial, because the boy does know his stuff, I think.
Shout out.
Fact. And the thing is, as well, is obviously on this list, we're very low down because the Scottish coefficient has taken a knock in the last few years and Hibs haven't done anything. So essentially, if the coefficient stuff's boring, just stop me, guys. But if you've not got high enough coefficient yourself, you'll take the country's coefficient. So that's the situation that Hibs are in. But going into the next round, there might be other teams that will enter the competition actually with lower coefficient points than us. So you never know. Just if there's enough crap teams or enough teams with low enough coefficient, we might well be seeded. But anyway, boys, that's kind of it on the European front. Obviously, when we get drawn in that, we'll be doing our best to make it over for the away legs. But anything else on Europe, boys, or do we want to move on after probably being a bit too stressed over this over the weekend?
Nah, I think the summary would be is I think we were all quite doom and gloom after the game on Saturday, understandably so. But I think as the days pass and you sort of mellow out a wee bit, I think, you come around to the realisation that there is still a chance. It's not all done for just yet. And actually, at least it will bring the football back sooner. At least as said, it'll bring it in the summer. Whilst I was very much looking forward to it, I had reservations over the preparedness of our squad to go and play Thursday, Sunday for 6 to 8 weeks, personally.
But Liam, the good news is the Hibs recruitment team are going to watch this video, and by the end of it, they don't need to do any more searching. They're going to have their transfer targets laid out, ready to snipe them. But a couple of things we need to get to before that. This week there was a board reshuffle, and Liam, I'll hand the floor to you to kind of talk through. Tim, I'm not going to butcher his second name, and Ian Gordon's new roles.
I should have maybe done a wee bit of prep for this and actually watched their interviews before I'd have. In fairness, folks, I normally would have done it, but it's been a bank holiday Monday, so I've just been kind of enjoying myself today. No, so I was a couple of updates shared on Friday, just in terms of obviously a few changes to the boards. I think a few of the non-executive directors, Kit Gordon included, have sort of moved on from the Hibernian board, and Malcolm McPherson's moved to being a non-exec director, which essentially means I don't think he is remunerated or paid in the same way as a director would be. Ian Gordon's taken on the chairman role, and Tim Bezbachenko has taken on Bill Foley's position, I presume, on the board. So there's still that sort of Black Knight representation on the board. Quite what I mean day to day, I'm not sure it'll have a huge amount of difference at the moment, because I think in the short term anyway, Ian's already obviously playing a very active role within the club. He's been shadowing Ben for quite a period of time now, in terms of learning the ropes, I suppose. Obviously he's been around the club now for 5-6 years, in some capacity or another, so probably seen different parts of the football operation, how it works. So I think in a nutshell, quite big changes in terms of the personnel, but I think in terms of the impact that we'll see in the short term, probably not a huge amount will change, because a lot of those people have been around or are around in some capacity. Non-executive directors typically anyway, and my experience of in our organisation, are there to provide challenge, open their access to their networks, provide direction at points, but they are not ultimately decision makers. So I know football fans like to go on about the board, and they talk about everyone in their totality. Those people in non-exec direct roles generally are not people who make decisions. They may have a vote in some circumstances, but they're not decision makers. So just wanted to clarify that. But I don't think there's really much else to say. The other thing I would say is, so I was at the fans panel thing last week, and Ian did mention that there's an update coming shortly about the new CEO. I think he shared that in his video update potentially as well. So I understand that has been agreed. We're just waiting on the person working out their sort of leave period before we can announce it. I was told the announcement was going to be really soon, but I believe in the video he said in the coming months. So I think maybe the timelines are just still to be agreed with his parent club in terms of when we're going to announce it. But all fairly positive stuff. Good to get a new CEO in the door as well, and someone who'll look after the sort of business operation whilst Mr. Mackay focuses on the football stuff.
Craig, we let Liam handle the smart stuff on this show, don't we?
That was incredible. That was really, honestly, there's some words in there I'd never even heard of, to be fair.
Which one?
I need to.
Was it remuneration by any chance? I'm sorry, that's a word we use at work, and I shouldn't really use that in this. I'm obviously slipped into corporate mode. Pay, essentially, pay.
Being honest, Liam, we were about 30 seconds away from one of the Dragon's Den dragons making an offer. Like, I was like, on your cell, Liam. But yeah, no, it does seem like we're in a good position. And then if we get a CEO in, the last time we removed the CEO from the club, we went on the best unbeaten run in recent times. So at least we've got a scapegoat, which is always great. Now I'm joking. I'm sure it'll be good to have someone that will hopefully just focus on as you say, the commercial and the business aspect of the club, because I think that there was just definitely cross-wired with this with the setup that we had before. But guys, next up on the agenda, we get to talk about the mental, stupid season that we had. Craig, obviously, absolutely mental season. David Gray came in, and after about quarter of the season, I think it's fair to say that almost everybody probably had the pitchforks out at some point, not necessarily at Gray, but at other people.
Yeah, I thought you were about to say that we had the pitchforks out for Gray, and I was ready to have a pitchfork at you there.
I know that's fair enough. But obviously, then it all felt doom and gloom. But yeah, what can you remember about those times? Like, why did it go so wrong at the start of the season compared to where it is now?
Oh, it was always a wee bit miserable, wasn't it? I remember coming on here, and every week you were just really looking forward to talking about Hibs. You were kind of just wanting to move on to the next one. I was actually saying that to my brother the other week. I was like, see, even when it was shite, I still enjoyed everything before a game. The drive to a game, the lead up to a game, the teams coming out, filling you with hope. And then every week it was just sucker punches every single week. It didn't even. Hindsight's easy. Like, hindsight's easy when everything's gone well, but I think maybe upon reflection, a lot of maybe the performances weren't just quite as bad as the results would suggest at the time. It was just we were making such stupid individual errors, whether it be giving the ball away for a goal or getting a red card, conceding goals at really bad times in the game, conceding a lot of late goals, and it was just sucker punch after sucker punch, and it's honestly one of the sort of the worst periods I've had, I would say, supporting Hibs. That first 12 games, everything, just the feeling around the place was so negative and toxic for a while. Thankfully, I would say most of this support, honestly, I don't think turned on the manager this time, which is generally the sort of reflex of a supporter, is just automatically to go towards the manager and blame the manager. I think it was maybe a lot more blamed at the guys upstairs, because I think it was a really poor start to the season off of the back of, maybe like 3 seasons of just absolute shit. So, but barring a decent European run. But yeah, it was a poor start to the season. It was grim, but obviously it turned out all right in the end.
Nice. And obviously, Craig, I've kind of tripped you up there by giving you nothing but negativity to talk about. We'll come on to the positives very soon, but Liam, do you want to talk about some YouTube comments?
Aye, so we've got quite a few that have come in. So Jay and Sandy have said, say we don't get Rocky or Nectar back, would this team beat Celtic? Smith, Miller, O'Hora, Iredale, Cadden, Manny, Levitt, Nicky Cadden, Boyle, McGrath, Bowie, all on the books today. 1-3-5-2 formation.
Love that.
Yep, possibly.
Get the keeper involved.
Make sure I don't be missing at the goalie. It's a very pivotal position, as we know. I mean, very hard to say, to be honest. It would have the potential, but yeah, I think still that spine of that team looks decent, but there's still so many unknowns in there. I don't know enough about Manny, in all honesty. Alistair Taylor, do you think newly supported Sunderland will want to keep Triantis loaned out, gaining great match experience, or will they want him in the Premiership? Harry, what do you think?
On Triantis, personally, obviously I'm not Sunderland, but I don't really see Sunderland as wanting to keep him. I think that they've probably got loftier goals than what Triantis can currently bring, and I don't really see him breaking into a Premier League team as good as he has been for Hibs. Realistically, I think after not being guaranteed group stage football, it probably does hinder our chances of getting him, because he'll definitely have his eyes set on the World Cup next year, and he's just going to try and get a move that will guarantee him like getting good eyes on him. So as much as I'd love to see him come back to Hibs, I know I didn't directly answer the question, but as much as I'd love to see him come back to Hibs, I'm not 100% sure it's realistic.
So, a couple of comments from Davy Granules. It's better we've not got a handout from any other club. I think Conference League group stage where we'll end up. Positivity. And on that theme of positivity, Mike Hibs said, trying to be positive, favourable draw, 2 ties in Europa League qualifying, and group phase is ours after all. That would be a very sweet way to do it. And then John McGlynn just finally said, Aberdeen won, I was fuming. Josh Taylor lost, the rage continued. Lando won the Monaco Grand Prix, got the good heels back Monday night with the TTS. All is well again. Good to hear from you, John, as always. Not a Formula One fan myself, but good to hear that. And then TV Canyon said, Hibs were that bad. That guy known as G sacked the podcast.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. G is still alive and kicking and still as angry and happy with Hibernian Football Club as he has ever been.
I think that wasn't this season, was that? It was a couple of seasons away. Yeah. To be fair, he'd had a few consecutive shite seasons, so who can blame him? Because there are only so many ways that you can find to say we weren't very good this weekend.
Aye, but Liam, speaking about it, when Craig was talking there, obviously, you can probably get clips of me. Like, as I always said at the time, I just thought David Gray was the right man, wrong time. I was against Gray being appointed because I thought it was dodgy to give a rookie manager a transitioning squad, and then 12 games into the season when we're rooted bottom of the league, I was at panic station. So I did say on the pod I wanted Gray to go, but I only wanted him to go assuming everyone else went. But I think what happened is Gray found something that worked, and you could almost see like this story as like teething problems for a first-time manager. Just how good has David Gray been at kind of finding his feet as a manager for the first time?
We've talked about it at length. I think he's been just such a steady figure during such a turbulent time, turbulent on and off the pitch with everything that's going on. Even if you think back to the comments that Bill Foley made after the Kelly Hearts game, the way he was sort of chucked under a bus there, the errors that must have been absolutely driving him up the wall in terms of some of the individual errors. He's just kept a really calm, level head, and I think that just shows you, not necessarily. It's not necessary that maybe everyone needs to come in with all this really worldly experience. Sometimes you just need a really sort of capable, values driven sort of leader type character to drive you through these times. Doesn't necessarily need to come with 15 to 20 years worth of managerial experience to come with it. Some people are just built differently, and I think we already knew that about David Gray from his playing career. He is just built differently.
And Craig, we put the question out being like to people, obviously Rocky was a turnaround moment, everybody will say that, but what's the moment where you knew the whole run was real? And almost every Hibs fan you'll ask will say that week where it was Celtic, Dundee United, Hearts. Like, is that the best week of your Hibs following life?
On a results basis, yes. Probably on an enjoyment. Even that seems harsh. Because I would rank cup wins above that. I'd probably rank European away days above that as well. But in terms of 1 week with three games, and I just don't think it can get much better from a Hibs point of view. Obviously, 3 very difficult games, 2 of them at home, 1 of them away. And I think under normal circumstances, these are all like losable games. There's no stick-ons in there at all, particularly this season when it's such a mad, batshit crazy season. But yeah, I would agree. Definitely, obviously, like you were hinting towards, the Rocky goal as a turnaround moment in the season. That was probably one of the peaks, if not the biggest peak in our season, I would say.
Hey. And Liam, same thing for you. Obviously, you've got a few extra years on me and Hibs, me and Craig on Hibs, including some legendary times before the
What was the
turn of the
famous five
century.
like?
Um,
I
but
remember one of the famous fives, like Dalby, McManus, Radden, O'Connor, and Fletcher. Is that one you're talking about?
the classic. But just an insane week, wasn't it? Was that the moment for you that you actually thought, you know what, we can do this and actually finish third?
Aye, that was a fucking bonkers week, wasn't it? Like I can't actually. I've never gone back and listened to it. But I could have begun that weekend. We were sort of sitting down saying we'd be happy with 4 points, weren't we? Kind of saying, 4 points will do. Keep the run going. Then he take a scudding for Celtic and all the usual fucking things that they hit out with when we play them, and then won't beat them. The Dundee United game, arguably the biggest of the lot because it's sandwiched in between two massive fixtures. The magnitude of that was obviously huge. The performance not brilliant, but then we go and produce something better at the weekend on the Sunday against Hearts, and the goal to win it especially, it was just fucking magical, wasn't it? So just an incredible week, incredible week.
That was main. What was it? Southeast Asia mainland HSC, and that was quite the week, lads. That was very good indeed. And then kind of, but with a lens looking forward, obviously, we had that unbelievable unbeaten run as well. That was kind of like sandwiched in the middle of, and then end of the season, it was just like a nice composed ending. Obviously, got beat off Aberdeen, but then we coasted through the other games and got the results we needed. And does this feel like the right framework to work from? Obviously, at the start of the season, even in January, we were probably talking about needing to have a massive rebuild come the summer. Liam, it feels so much more positive. There was probably a time this season where we said we'll take two of this squad and then we'll bin the rest of them. But now it feels like we've actually got a core.
Aye, and there's definitely something there to work from. I think the spine still needs improved, especially with what we know about, expected outgoings. Because if Rocky, Nectar don't come back next season, that's two players that immediately need replaced. We definitely need a goalkeeper. I know there's a bit of debate over, what's kind of goalkeeper we should be in the market for. But my views, we should always be looking to improve the squad. And then we probably need two centre forwards as a bare minimum. So I think there is quite a lot of work needing done, and there's probably some recruitment that you'd want to do around the periphery, around the edges, especially if one or two others move on. There's talking Miller maybe moving on. You could probably see a world in which Dylan Levitt or Nathan Mariah Welsh, one of those two, potentially would move on. So I do think it will not be the 55 transactions that Mr. Mackay likes to talk about that we had last summer, but I think there'll be quite a lot of activity over the course of the summer, just because that is Scottish football clubs do generally, move and manipulate their squad, and it is only really their sort of third transfer window of this, and it's the first full transfer window, I should say, of this new model being in place in terms of how we recruit as well. So I do expect there to be quite a lot of outgoings, and I think there'll be some squad players who've not really been getting an opportunity, and some players who've been out on loan as well who would expect to move on. So I still think there'll be plenty to sort of whet the appetite in terms of what will come over the summer.
Yeah. And Craig, we've cemented ourselves as the third best team in Scotland based off the league season we had. How many signings do we need to make to ensure we cement that for next year?
Well, probably similar to what Liam said. I don't think there's any hard and fast number that we need, to be fair, because it will change as the season goes on. If you were to end up with Nectar and Rocky back and you took your squad as it was, I mean, you wouldn't need too much. You maybe need 3 or 4 quality signings, but I think the reality is, as Liam said, there will be a lot of guys that move out, and we'll need to adjust. You've got Venti coming back from his loan. It's likely that he'll move on. We should get a bit of money for him. It's likely that Yuan will go as well. Again, hoping for a decent enough fee that we can maybe put back into the playing squad and reinvest in some other better players. I think obviously a club like Hibs inevitably, especially once that sort of bonus of the money of the group stage is going, I think we'll have to be looking to the free contract or the players out of contract market and pick up some deals there. But I would say at the moment, I think the squad's in a decent place to start from, and I would say maybe 5 signings as a rule, and then out with that you sort of adjust as you lose players.
100%. A couple of comments just about the gaffer Harry and the YouTube from probably our two favourite commenters, to be honest. Two of our favourites as well. So John McGlenn, the prospect of how good SDG could be with one more season under his belt as head coach is very exciting. How he turned us around this season, nothing short of amazing. 100%. Totally agree. And then Jay and Sandy, SDG turned a team that never played together into a team that wanted to play together. Pick your best fantasy football team ever and they'd be rubbish at the start. I think that's a fairish summary. Anything else for you, Harry?
No, the thing is, as well, just on Liam's comment there, if you want to become our new favourite commenter, then leave more kind comments like those guys do. And as John always likes to say, hit the like button, plug. But I was actually hoping that Craig would drop me a number. He said 5 or 6 then, because I was going to try and segue that into us actually talking about transfers. I'll hit up first with the new goalkeeper that we've been rumoured to sign, Raphael Solinger. I know I was tasked to kind of do research on him a couple of weeks back, and I did not. Is that how we're going to say it about it? Solinger?
Salinger, I think.
Salinger. We'll get it wrong, because who was it? Was it Yuan when he first signed, and everybody was calling him? I swear he was one of those. Johan. Yes,
I certainly was not.
Oh, there still is some out there.
And to be fair, I've just stuck with Big Miko for the big man. But anyway, Solinger, I've done some research into him. Essentially, I'm not going to just dump stats on you. He's pretty much very similar statistically to what Jordan Smith was. His save percentage was 72%, Smith's was 75%. But something I thought was positive is he conceded the third most volumes of shots in the Austrian Bundesliga, but he conceded the 6th most amount of goals. So essentially, he saves shots, which is
how
great.
tall is he, Harry?
He's 6'4", but just about 6'5". So I would assume that he's got a decent command of the box. He's not quite mentioning it in every press release like we did with Matt Macy, but he should still be a relatively exciting guy. Hilariously, even though he's a goalkeeper, he has been booked 3 times in 31 league games, which I thought was really funny. So he must be some form of shithouse as well.
Time wasting pro.
You can't know the context.
Didn't hate that.
Yeah.
I looked at his stats. His per 90s. This will please a lot of people because I know folk get quite hung up on it. But his accurate long balls and his long ball accuracy was very high on FOTMob for a goalkeeper. And he's had 0 errors that have led to a goal this season.
That's very good. Do you know if Jordan Smith is that registered as any for him? Like, I'm not trying to bash him, just like for the comparison.
I think errors, from my memory, I think to count on that metric, they have to be pretty egregious in order to actually count as an error that leads to a goal. Jordan Smith he's had 0.12 per 90. So that's the errors that led to a goal this season.
Interesting. We won't speculate on that because that would just be a bit mean. But Craig, his release clause is supposedly 300,000. The club have supposedly said, according to Hibs Central, that we can try and whittle that down somewhat. Is 300,000 a bit high in your opinion for a goalkeeper? If it's the right man, are you happy to spend
that? Well, the last time we spent 300 grand on a goalkeeper, it didn't go too well. It's all relative, isn't it? If he comes in and he's amazing, we'll say, it's a great deal. If he comes in and he's shite, I'll say that was a waste of money. So I don't really know. I'm not a fucking football expert or scout or anything. So we'll see when the guy comes in. That's all I can give you, because ultimately, having never watched him and really never heard of him before a couple of weeks ago, there's not really too much we can say on that. I like the fact that he's 6'4".
I would just say on goalkeepers, I would say not get too high on him if he has a really good start, not get too low on him if he has a bad start. I think goalkeepers need a big enough sample size to be able to actually judge them over a period of games. I don't think you can cast judgment on a goalkeeper based on 190 minutes, for example, not looking at anyone in particular.
I feel like that was so directed at Harry, it's unbelievable. And I enjoyed it, and I agree with it.
Yeah, both the keepers we had this year I got completely wrong, so that was great. The thing is, as well, I'll say about goalkeepers is like it's hard to have a goalkeeper as like a sexy signing. Like, it's not the type of one that fans are going to be celebrating very often. You normally just get a goalkeeper that's just kind of, does the job. But moving on to it, boys, we've tasked ourselves with coming up with 2 players each. Last week, if you've not seen it, we've done our keep bench or start bench sell. So if you want to see on the current squad who we want to keep, who we think we should move on, and who we can have as a rotational player, definitely check out last week's episode. But any of you is confident and want to get the ball rolling?
No, but I will go. Do you know what? I actually done the classic transfer market fucking
Sweep.
sweep, and was just trying to find players out of contract that I thought were relatively realistic. So I've dipped into League One. Shock. I know everybody will be raging about that one. And I've come up with a name of a guy who plays for Blackpool, who is, what's his name? Sonny Carey.
Yeah.
The reason he sort of caught my eye was 33 appearances and 8 goals in League One for Blackpool. I haven't watched a moment of him playing, but I think 8 goals is a decent return. And I went onto a website on the advice of Harry to sort of look at his scout reports and his stats and all that kind of stuff. And he's listed to have a similar player of Rio Hatate, and he's actually got a better goal threat and better progressive passing percentage than Rio Hatate, so get him in.
But that, to be fair, is in a significantly worse league. Liam, you did have a chuckle to yourself. Is that a player that you had listed?
No, he's not. But it's funny just because we're all obviously fishing in the same pond. We've not really diversified here. We seem to have gone right into transfer market and just hope for the best. Which, to be fair, as a strategy that in the last 4 years has served us fairly well on this podcast in terms of maybe not actually coming up with good suggestions, but at least making content. So it's not the worst in the world. I've got a funny one because I think this guy has played defence and defensive midfield, and you have suggested him, Harry, previously, albeit it was some years back. He's played in Scotland before. He's been down south for the last 3 or 4 seasons, and I think he's someone who's got the sort of the physicals, if you like. I'm not going to use the A word because people pick me up on using that all the time, but the physicals to play in this league, and that is Hakeem Adofin at Rotherham United. So he is a player I've obviously seen play, but that was for Livingston and Hamilton. I may have been really bored one day and sat down to watch Rotherham because it is the kind of thing I do, but I can't remember ever having watched them play. So he's one that I think could potentially come in as either in the middle of the 3 or potentially on the right of the 3 at the back. And he can also provide you a bit of cover as a 6 as well, because he's played a fair bit of that. Bit of a jack of all trades. Brilliant in the air. Both boxes as well, by the way. Like really effective aerially in both boxes. Good across the ground in terms of he's got a bit of speed, and he's a centre-back that scores goals. What's not to love?
He's an absolute baller. I absolutely love the boy. Like, just big physical players who are actually good at football. Like, I think he's like, I love Jaya Toure. Like, absolutely adore Jaya Toure. Obviously, we're not going to get a player of that caliber, but he's about as good as we'll get in terms of a comparison of just being strong, physical, but actually good at football as well. So I'll give you my first one. He is at Reading and he's out of contract. His name is Michael Craig. He's actually English, but he must have a family member that's Scottish, so he's actually capped at the youth level. And my main thinking is he's been injured, but it was only 6 to 8 weeks, so he should be fit come the new season. He actually has been a defensive midfielder throughout his career, but because Reading have had quite a lot of injury issues, he's played right back and he's just going to be lights out. So in my head, you've got a versatile young player that you can kind of nurture and help grow into the team. And as we say, we want good quality options that we can have for the future as well. I think that's something that we're doing quite often at the moment is signing players with not the intention of selling them on, but knowing that if they kind of go on to be good enough that we likely will, the likes of Bowie and stuff. So for me, I just think he kind of perfectly fits the profile. He really likes to get stuck in. He's known for being good on the ball. He's 5'10", so is like apparently the only restriction on him is he's not the best in the air. But I think the positions that we'd be playing him in probably wouldn't rely too heavily on that anyway. So yeah, Michael Craig for me. And plus he's got a twin brother, so we might do the Cadden thing. We might bring his twin brother in from Tottenham in a couple of years after he's kind of bored of playing in there as well. And final point, we have a good track record now of getting Scottish players into the Scottish national setup. So I just think that players should be looking at Hibs as an attractive place to play if they want to play international football.
Fair enough.
Craig, do you want to get us rolling with your next one?
Right, I'm gonna debating. I'm gonna go for another Scottish player. One well known, and to be fair, this is one that we've actually watched, and I think is on the semi-realistic side. I'm sure a few Dundee fans would disagree with me on that one, but I'm going to say Josh Mulligan. Player I like. He is the Dundee Josh Campbell. He looks like him. He plays like him. He's extremely versatile. He can play basically in the middle and anywhere, sort of down the right flank, right wing back, right back, centre mid, and I think he's a good player that should we be progressing in Europe beyond the sort of the two tie mark if we won one of them. I think he would be somebody that's very good to have in your squad. Ideally, we get into group stages, and we're going to need guys like him who can sort of turn the hand to different positions. I think he suits the sort of grey mould of player, quite athletic, can do a lot of running. He's got decent enough technique. So yeah, he's definitely someone that I think we should be having a look at. As he's out of contract at Dundee in the summer, so I know a lot of the Dundee fans really rate him and want to keep him. So yeah, I'd be having a look at him.
Your thoughts on that one, Liam?
I don't hate it. I think it's a position in the pitch where we'd probably need to move someone on in order to create the space for him. But I don't hate it as a shout. I do exactly agree with Craig. What Craig says about him being a very grey mould of player, grafter, hard runner. I don't think he's been a standout for them all through the time as well. So I think you'd hopefully be getting him at a time where he's improving, because I don't think he's always necessarily been a lock starter for them. So, aye.
Nice.
He's a good age, Josh Mulligan, isn't he? He's
25, 26?
Yeah, no, he's
Great
younger than that.
age.
He's what age is he? Is he 22?
Is
22,
he
I
young as
think.
that? Both.
Uh,
We need to pay compensation for him then.
but I feel like obviously there's a player that's obviously definitely still got a lot of learning to do, and can, if we were to get him on a 3 or 4 year deal, would be looking to bring him on and coming in towards the prime of his career, and you would still have good sell on ability if you did develop enough over the next couple of years.
And Leon, you go.
Which one of the two obvious ones do you want me to go for? The really obvious one or the obvious one?
Go really obvious, then you can follow up with the obvious.
Right, the really obvious one, ladies and gentlemen, he's actually playing as we speak. It's none other than 17 goals and 41 appearances, Mr. Ronan Kelleher. He's actually just scored.
Oh, for God's sake.
No, he's no.
Someone say 18. Someone
Josh
say
Nisbet.
18 goals.
Oh, it's an assist from Ronan. Sorry, that's just another goal contribution to add to the many. Just literally as we're live talking, he's just put the ball into the net. Look, I think if you watch the game on Thursday, it seems to have split opinion, because I got a few replies on Twitter disagreeing with me about this, but I think he was the only player for Ross County who looked capable of making something happen. I mean, they're a bad team. We've seen that on a few occasions this season, and I know they've taken points from us, but they're a bad side. And I think when he's played, admittedly, he didn't start one of the games against us, but I think when he's played, he's genuinely looked like, other than maybe Noah Chilvers, who's out long term, the one player who's capable of doing something. He gets shots off. He's a goal scorer. He's proven that. I know he's proven at a lower level. He's proven consistently through his career he knows where the goal is. I think he's physically absolutely up to it as well, which we've talked numerous times about how important that is. I think he'd be really well suited to a 3-5-2 as well, and having a partner. So he's my suggestion. I think if you can get that many goals at a struggling Ross County side, you can do well at Hibs.
Do you think he comes in as a starter, Liam? Like, would you see him as taking a place off of Bowie or Boyle?
I think that Bowie and Boyle are. I think that he's just a very different type to both of those players. So he's not like either of those two in any facet of the game, really. So you'd be buying him almost as a different option, and you'd be rotating between the three of them. We've seen that Gray's not afraid to sort of change the striking options up. I think, if Boyle obviously continues his form in the last sort of 6 months, and he's starting, it's about who plays alongside him. And I think he could do that.
do we have any idea? I don't know why I'm asking you in particular, but do we have any idea sort of how much it would take to get him? Or
Depends on the outcome of tonight. Obviously, I think if Ross County stay up, it probably cost us more than it would if they went down. To be honest, I think they paid a couple $100,000 to get him. They basically
Ross County?
They repurposed the Simon Murray money they got from Dundee and just directed it Cliftonville's way. So, I do think I do think he'd be a good signing for us. I'm a bit more certain of this one than I was of Rory Payton last summer.
The thing I do admire though is if Liam's got a transfer target in mind, he will mention it so many times that it will somehow get to Hibs
or a manager.
Or it'll get to the top of the bookies anyway. But yeah, because in my head, the way I see it is, I think that we're losing Miko and Gale, so I want to have a replacement for both of them. And I think that although he's not a direct replacement for Gale, I think that Hale would kind of fall more in the category of doing the role that Boyle and Gale do, as opposed to doing what Bowie and Miko would do. Like, I would expect Hale to be more of the like annoying bastard that just kind of continually goes the entire game, but does have a bit more quality about him. Anyway, on the opposite side of the pitch is where I'm looking at. There's a player for Plymouth who's out of contract. He's probably slightly above our wage bucket, but it's the type of profile that I'd love to see. His name is Mustafa Bundu, no idea how to pronounce it. But essentially, he's predominantly a right winger, plays comfortably anywhere across the front three, which I think is kind of the perfect mould for what Gray wants to do. I think you just need to be quick, strong, and this guy's just got technical ability. In the Championship, he had 16 goal contributions with 10 goals, 6 assists. I think he's like a stronger version of Ellie Yuan. I think he's the type of player that would get us all excited and off our feet. So I don't necessarily think we're going to sign Mustafa himself, but I think that mould of player from some random European country that Hibs seem to like to recruit players from. I don't know if this one's going to be Finland or Estonia. Maybe we'll get another Norwegian boy or Danish. Who knows? But that type of profile of tall, strong, and Liam's favourite word, if he's got the athleticism, he's got the David Gray in him. So, yeah, that type of player. There's a few players I want to run by you. We'll just do, both of you just say yes or no, and then we can discuss them if we get 2 yeses. Or Liam, you look like you're going to say something. Or you just... Nope. Okay, so first up, Richard Taylor, out of contract at St Mirren. Centre back for those that are...
Did you demand a one-word answer there?
So say yes or no initially, and then I'll come to you for feedback.
Yes.
Liam?
Muted.
Okay, that was a nod. Craig, talk to me. Why would you take
him? I think he's a good physical presence, athletic. Obviously, I'd be guilty of lying if I said I've like watched him specifically in the games that we've played St Mirren, but I know he's been one of the better players. The only kind of thing that's given me a few doubts about that is I've seen, because I actually looked up his name earlier today, there's reports that he's maybe going to sign with Luton, so I think maybe they would price us out wage-wise, because obviously they'll be, although they've back-to-back relegations, they'll still be on parachute money and have a fair bit of money going about them. So I think if they were interested, I'm pretty sure they would take him off our hands.
Aye, but we're not losing out on players to our former CEO. Liam, why were you a yes on that one?
I just think it makes sense if Rocky goes, to be honest. He's not Rocky Bashiri, or certainly not the Rocky the last 6 months, but he's decent, and I think he could absolutely come in and do a job in the league. I think he's another one, though, unfortunately, who would be sort of limited to playing that middle centre-back option. So it's like kind of one position in the 11 that he can give you. So if you're looking for a specialist to do that, he can do it, but probably not a lot else.
And as I've said several times, I like footballers that do what they're supposed to do. I think he's a defender that's good at defending first and foremost. He's 6'2". I think he's got the kind of physical attributes that suit what David Gray's wanting to do. I think he's relatively quick as well.
Yeah, he is quick. But I'll be honest, you are signing him for the physical attributes. Yeah. You're not signing him for a lot else. Like, and I think that is absolutely fine in the current system. But as I say, if we are to look to change things around, I'm just really conscious that we've obviously got Ektheta and O'Hora on the books as well, and we do have to find a role for them next season.
Or
Probably.
potentially one of them could, like, I feel like if we're to look to bring someone else in, then one of them might move on. That was last week's discussion. Anyway, another centre back what hit you with. Liam, I believe you've mentioned him before. Michael Rose, currently at Stoke, Scottish, 29, left footed, I believe. He is out of contract. I might have made the left foot thing up. In my head, we've mentioned someone before that's a left footed Scottish centre half.
I think you're thinking of Liam Lindsay potentially.
Oh, that might be, but somewhere G smiled very brightly when you said that. But talk to me about Michael Rose. Would you still be a yes or no?
Aye, someone I've been aware of since he was at Ayr United. I think he's obviously gone down to England and done very well for himself. He would be someone that would absolutely interest me. I would obviously be dependent on what offers he had down south. He's been at Stoke, who's been a bit of a basket case for the last number of years. So he maybe feels the time's right to come home. He's 29. This could be his last big contract, and he might see his last big contract as another team in the Championship. I'm not sure.
But as we've proved with Jamie McGrath, we are happy to give final big contracts to people such as 4-year deals. So, Michael, get yourself up the road, son. We'll have some fun. Craig, I'll come to you next. We'll switch positions up. Sam Dalby.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think it's difficult because you've seen a few of these striker types that have been at sort of maybe Motherwell, Dundee United, Dundee, and had sort of purple patches and sort of one season wonders in the past. Louis Moult's maybe a bit harsh, but I was thinking, he was really exceptional for that one season, and it's kind of been okay for the rest of it. What was the Dutch boy? What was his name? Van Veen. He was exceptional for one season, then kind of went back off. So it's like, is Sam Dalby going to be one of these guys? But I think it's definitely, if it was achievable, it would be worth the risk because he's clearly got an eye for goal. Like the guy was finding the net from so many different varied positions in the box. Obviously, his goal against Hearts at Tynecastle is a perfect example of what was kind of nothing ball into the box, and he managed to scoop his head round the ball and put it into the net. Not sure the exact amount of goals, but I'm guessing it would have been nearing 20.
15 and 37.
Right, so it is a very good return, and I can't think that he wouldn't score plenty of goals with the delivery coming in for either flanks of the Hibs side.
Fewer goals than Ronan Hale this season, but obviously he's not quite at the same level of plaudits and media coverage that Ronan Hale has.
Is that 15 goals in all comps?
Aye, yeah.
He would have scored more than that.
I guess he didn't have the League Cup group stages to stat pad, so I'll help you out with that one there, Craig. I'll let you.
How many penalties has Ronan Hale scored as well? That's not a pop. That's a genuine question.
You're asking me asking me questions I don't have access to the answers to.
I do admire that Liam's pretending that he's not got an entire database on everything Ronan Hale's done during professional football this season.
I don't hate the Dalby shout. He is one who I do think has had a really good season, finding a team that's really well suited to him playing. I don't actually think he's very good at a lot of facets of the game, though, which makes me think that he probably, if he was to go to another club next season, wouldn't have as good a season. And that's not, and you could say the same about Ronan Hale, right? Like, there's so many different variables involved, but I don't really notice him until he puts the ball in the net.
But I think that's definitely fair. But I think there's a few strikers that you can say that about, to be fair.
No, that's fair.
I'd definitely take it, especially because it'd be he's out of contract, didn't he? So it'd definitely be on a free if we were to get him. I've only got two more names for you boys. Next up, former Hibs player. He delivered a certain ball into the box, and supposedly he's just been released from Empley, I believe it is. But Liam Henderson, Craig said that his wages probably a bit more than we could afford, but I assume that we'd definitely take him if he was available and keen.
Yes, obviously we would take him if he was available and keen. That's a bit of a no-brainer, really, isn't it? But just on the bullshit Google searches that I was doing, he was on a reported 24 grand a week, which I'm not quite sure we could compete with unless he was wanting to take a drop. I would imagine it's probably more likely. He seems quite established and seems like he enjoys his life in Italy, so I would imagine he would probably find a Serie A team a sort of lower Serie A team that'll take him.
11 yellow cards this season. I don't ever remember him being a dirty player when he played for Hibs at all. That's quite impressive. It's quite some going, but I guess Empoli probably spent a lot of time without the ball.
Yeah.
In Serie A, they're they're not one of the big teams. They're a bit of a yo-yo club, aren't they, Empoli? So maybe explains a wee bit of it away. But it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you could make it happen, I think even just for romantic reasons, you do it, right? Like,
yeah, just correct me if I'm wrong, but is the reason we scored the corner, like the Paul Hanlon corner at Tiny, was it not because he was too tired to run over for the corner, so John McGinn went over? Or have I just made that up? Because I swear Henderson was on corners that game and then John McGinn took one corner. I might have completely made that up. I swear I heard that once.
Rings bells. It does ring bells. Does ring bells. It's I mean, fucking some career he's had, eh? Like you have to just step back and go fucking fair play. Like when he was at Hibs, I mean, he was obviously decent for us in the Championship, and he was still young. And he had an incredible game, but never really saw him go on to be a player who's played hundreds of games in Serie A and Serie B. That's quite remarkable, really. And I think he would come back. He would definitely enrich us for the European games. That's for sure, because of his experience of playing on the continent. I think that would be a valuable thing, particularly if you drew an Italian side or a team where the style of football is similar to Italian football. But maybe he's had such a career out there because he's just so well suited to it. I don't know.
And Football Manager used to be able to ask players to recommend other players. If we brought him in, he could just pure tell us who to pinch from Italian football.
These Italian gods.
And the last one is kind of been in the rumour mill for a while, so we definitely probably should have looked him up more, kept tabs on him. But Preston North End, Ryan Ledson. Liam, you nodded more assuredly than Craig did, so I'll give you the floor on that one.
Honestly, I mean, my Ryan Ledson knowledge extends to a good look at FotMob. I did watch him in the last game, the Championship last games of the season. When we were away, I saw a bit of him. He looked good in that game, quite a combative type midfielder. Maybe not the most, sort of forward-thinking type of midfielder, but definitely seemed to have enough about him in terms of winning the ball back, get involved in the defensive side of the game. Ronan Kelleher has just scored to make it 2-0 to Ross County, by the way.
Mate, that 10 league goes in it.
So he's cooking. So I do think there's something in. I do think
He's
there's something in
delighted,
it potentially. I did think there was a chance he would score when we were live on air, but I didn't think he'd get a goal and an assist in the 23 minutes that have been played so far. That's quite some going.
Oh my goodness. Craig, I would argue that Ryan Ledson sounds like a Welsh name. I don't know why. I just thought he would be Welsh when I looked him up, like it was English.
Boy, cheers for that.
But boys, that was the main names that we've kind of thrown together. Was there any names that we've not discussed that you were expecting to hear?
I was hoping for a veteran name, like an older to
being honest,
come in place.
I was going to potentially throw in there. It was similar to the Bindu thing, not that we'd actually get him, but like Danny Ings, I think he's 32, so he'll definitely get a contract somewhere. Like if he was an extra 2 years older, then maybe we could sniff around there. But
Stuart Armstrong?
Yes.
Is that realistic to you guys, do you think?
He's Sheffield Wednesday have let him go, so he's on the way down. If we're saying Ryan Ledson's realistic, why wouldn't Stuart Armstrong be? He's had a spell out in the MLS, I believe, is that right? And then he's gone to Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think that's inconceivable. I know people scoff at that because maybe the player he was 2 or 3 years ago, and the fact he's playing in the Premier League, maybe even two seasons ago, but he's not, and he's not got a club. And I do believe, I think I said this in this podcast, where I do believe he's got a house in Edinburgh somewhere in the north side of Edinburgh as well. So I think he would absolutely be one that makes sense. I think he's transitioning into a career in law as well after football. So, maybe there was something that we could do there to help him with that transition. I don't know. He's I've always really liked him as a player, and he got quite a hard time, obviously, when he played for Scotland from certain sections of support. But I think he's a terrific player. He's got all the energy you need. Even I think he's well into his 30s now, but he's got all the energy you need from a midfield player in this league as well. So on a 1-year deal, I think it would be absolutely a sensible one. It would be almost the midfield equivalent of a kind of Dwight Gale, Adam Lafondra type signing in terms of that quality. Because I really like the premise that Craig mentioned earlier on, is signing another striker in that mould for your sort of 4th or 5th choice striker as that guy. I think Armstrong can even play that sort of sort of role that Hoylett has been occupying. I think you'd maybe even play him. He's probably a good enough footballer, let's be honest, to play him one further on in this league, because he is that good, like, technically.
Yeah. I was thinking about, when I had his name in mind, I was genuinely thinking about him sort of just in behind the strikers and playing wee flicks round the corner, picking up areas of the park, sort of dead space and stuff, and finding passes.
Third man running at the box as well. Like, he's made a career out of that. I know he didn't score like hundreds of goals in the Premier League, but he scored quite a few for a guy that was, I think he played predominantly right wing for Southampton when he was in the Premier League. It's not really, as a right footer, you're not getting a huge number of chances to score goals if you're playing right wing. So, and I don't know what he did for Celtic and Dundee United in terms of goal return, but I'd imagine it was pretty good, particularly in his time at Celtic.
I don't know how many games he played last season.
It's always good as well, knowing that, like, the players we've currently got would have someone like that to look up to. Like, that's the type of player that you'd love Josh Campbell to kind of mould his game off. But yeah, no, obviously, if Stuart Armstrong, if he's interested, then definitely get him signed. That'd be a cracker. And the final thing to do with signings, obviously, if you've got any other mentions, shout them out. Players we're expecting to leave. But let's just mention the ones for a fee. Definitely, I think it's fair to say Venti's probably out the door. Would expect Yuan to be leaving. Is there anyone else that you think will go for money?
I think we covered this last week, but I think Lewis Miller, for me, is probably a potential one to go. And I do think one of Levitt or Mariah Welsh will probably move on.
Well, if it's still on Levitt, I will cry many, many tears. So let's hope it is not.
I'd be surprised if Levitt moved on. I feel like it would be strange just after he's found a bit of form in the team and kind of established himself as one of the starters on the side. It would be strange, I think, if he was to leave now.
I think more from the perspective of Craig, he's got a year left, and actually clubs would be interested in him rather than him, like, rather than him pushing for the move, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think with his pedigree, I do think, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just think it's an outside chance, but I do think Mariah Welsh potentially as well, which also I'd be sad about, because I think they both bring something to the squad, but I think neither of them are the greatest of athletes. I know not everyone in the team has to be a 10 out of 10 athlete, but I think that's, Mariah Welsh obviously very good across the ground, but he's not got that kind of size that David Gray seems to really favour. That's probably why Kwon played so much, when we were not doing so well, was because he was big.
Still a player there, I still believe.
Young player of the year, player of the year.
Speaking of stupid things that we've said previously, we've definitely not bashed Ewan enough, so why don't we each give a suggestion of a signing that Ewan would want us to make this summer?
John Mackey? Too obvious?
John Mackey, Robbie Dees.
Ewan's had some good ones. He's had some howlers. Like, Ewan obviously had Luke McCowan long before we were in for Luke McCowan. He's had a couple others that escape me, but he has had some good ones down years. But he's had some howlers like.
Who's the one that is it? Oisin Smith? Is that his name?
Oisin. Oh, right. I thought you were going to say Oisin McEntee, the boy at Walsall that we were linked with. The left-sided centre half, or centre half who were linked with. Was at Walsall.
I don't
remember.
I don't know his exact name, but no, I was just trying to pick a random St Mirren midfielder because it would feel unjust.
Keelan Boyd-Munce, he mentioned in January. He likes Keelan Boyd-Munce, I think. Whereas I don't think it's a terrible shout either, to be fair. But again, you would get upset if we kept on plundering St Mirren, and we've mentioned at least 2 St Mirren players so far.
But we hadn't mentioned any St Mirren midfielders, so I thought we'll get at least one in before the end of the episode.
One I like that Kev Wilson mentioned, but I think it's probably getting to the stage where he's a level above Hibs, is Ethan Erehon, who was obviously at St Mirren, but now Lincoln City. I think he's been really good for them, so I think it's probably English Championship next for him, or abroad, which is a pity because he was on doorstep, but we obviously weren't ready to get him done. Ewan, Will Dennis was Ewan's as well. Mike's just said in the comments.
Nice. And what about Mo Salah for Dundee? Was that one of Ewan's as well? Or was that just a Hibs fan thing?
I remember saying on the podcast that I couldn't believe that Dundee had 3 good midfield players, therefore I wouldn't want to sign all 3, because we were talking about Cameron, McCowan and Silla at one point. I was like, no, 3 of them can be good. Like, they're a rank brought inside. Like, they can't have 3 brilliant midfielders.
Can people? And then apparently that docket has been linked to the Motherwell. Anyway, we're not going to be talking about Dundee.
Anyway.
Liam needs to go, guys, because he wants to go and watch Ronan Hale complete his third goal contribution of the half in the next 5 minutes. But just a quick update on our side. Obviously, the season has ended, and as always, we'll take a small hiatus. And likelihood is we will be away for the next 3 or 4 Mondays, with a look to come back probably towards the end of June, unless something significant happens. Birthday care pish time. Thanks always for the support. We do appreciate you guys putting up with our nonsense every week. It has been a bloody rollercoaster this season, lads, and you guys go through the highs and lows with us. So thank you very much for watching. Anything you guys want to chime in there?
No, just thank you again for another season and supporting us for another season. We really appreciate it. It is birthday care pish, but it is much appreciated. And sometimes we come onto this and we're maybe not in the best of moods or very well prepared, so we do appreciate your patience as we walk through it. But unfortunately, we are rank amateurs and we just do this for a bit of fun. But we do appreciate you watching.
Okay. All right, and on that happy note, we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Cheers.
On Hibs. Excellent stuff.